everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Madison and here on YouTube I film sewing videos and tutorials along with other tidbits of videos to share my love and passion for fashion with you all. I'm so excited that you stopped by to watch today's video, so let's get started. So I thought it would be kind of fun to wrap up the year, wrap up 2020 by filming a video to show you all of the things that I made in 2020. I've seen a lot of other creators do this and I loved kind of seeing a recap of their year and everything that they made or accomplished or new skills that they learned through their projects, and so I thought I would do it with everything that I made this year. If there is one positive thing about 2020, it is the fact that I had time to sew and got back into sewing in a way that I honestly haven't been able to do in 3 years. Probably haven't even been able to do since before college. I was just always using my time for other things or super busy with school and work and teaching. Whenever COVID happened, we never really went back to school from spring break. We were completely online and teaching and learning was just so different and we were trying to kind of get the hang of it. So my schedule really was opened up and I found myself with a lot of time, but also time that I was having to stay at home because we really weren't able to go out quite as much. So I really got back into sewing with all of this extra time. It was kind of a way for me to escape from everything that was happening in the world, but also a way for me to kind of just get into the zone. Sewing for me has always been something that's very stress relieving. It's kind of like a mental health thing, like self-care, and so I got back into it and just was able to really be absorbed in my passion, learn a ton of new things, and be able to work on projects that I've been wanting to make for honestly like 3 to 4 years. It's been absolutely amazing, and when I was compiling all my pieces for this video, I realized that I've made over 28 projects since May, which is honestly pretty insane. If I go back and count up the amount of sewing projects I've made over the past like 4 years, it probably doesn't even add up to 28. So this year has truly been one of accomplishment when it comes to sewing, and so I'm so excited to share all these projects with you all. Half of them are projects that I didn't film videos for because I didn't actually start filming my YouTube videos until about kind of like halfway into quarantine and start to kind of film videos about all the things that I was sewing and making. That's another thing that came out of 2020 is filming videos and posting them on YouTube, and YouTube just kind of blowing up after I made the Kamatoshi strawberry dress. So thank you all for following along my journey and being so supportive and loving fashion and style and sewing as much as I do. So without further ado, let's dive into all of the projects I've made in 2020. Alright, so first up we have this super fun lime green and white striped dress. This was previously curtains, and I decided to turn it into a really fun summery dress. I wanted to do something very kind of carefree and youthful. I wanted to play with ruffles and different directionality. I did film a video over this, so if you want to see the whole process, you can go check that out on YouTube. This was the second video that I made in quarantine, and so I just loved how it turned out. I tried a lot of just different things with this style, with the curved neckline and the ruffles and just everything like that, and the high waist, and it turned out super fun, and it was a super fun dress to wear this summer. It really fit into this whole kind of summer theme, and it was light in the midst of a dark situation. So yeah, this was one of the dresses. Alright, so this was the first dress that I made in quarantine and filmed a video for. I made a lot of dresses before this, but this was the first one that I actually filmed a YouTube video for, and I just loved how it turned out. I really got into ruffles this year and this kind of very illogical and practical style of dresses, but that are still very romantic and ladylike and in a way southern. So this was previously a bed skirt that had ruffles, so all of the tiers are actually the ruffles from the bed skirt that I just sewed onto the dress. Same thing for the sleeves, they were previously the ruffles on the bed skirt, and I just love how it turned out with the square neckline. I self-drafted this entire pattern, so it was really fun to play around and figure out how to do this bodice and these straps. And the back is also this really fun square neckline and then an invisible zipper. I just love the yellow and the blue. I really don't wear a lot of blue and have a lot of blue pieces, so I really loved how this turned out, and it was definitely one of my favorite dresses to wear throughout the spring and throughout the summer. And if you want to see the whole process for how this is made, you can go check out that video on my channel as well and see how I drafted this pattern and turned the bed skirt into a dress. Alright, so this dress is one of the other recycle and redesign projects that I made through quarantine and also filmed a video for. And this dress was previously a skirt. It was this super full skirt that had this gold kind of edging along the bottom. I found it at Goodwill and I just really loved the colors and the stripes and realized that I had enough fabric that I could somehow turn it into a dress. So the whole bodice was made out of the striped ruffle section at the bottom. I just cut a panel out of the skirt, removed the stripes, pieced it together for the bodice, and then sewed it onto the top of the skirt while slimming the skirt down. I used some of the extra fabric for straps, and then in the back we have our zipper, and I actually had to extend the back by adding extra fabric, but it still turned out really well, and it's just a very interesting and fun color scheme and print, something that I don't typically wear, but it was very fun to wear this summer. I just really loved how it turned out, how I turned a skirt into a dress, so this was a fun like redesign project. Alright, something that was super popular this spring and into the summer, especially amongst the sewing and DIY community, is shearing. Shearing is one of those trends that goes in and out of style, but it came back this year and I absolutely fell in love with it and decided to try my hand at making sheared things. This was my second attempt at shearing, but using the actual method of using the elastic in your bobbin. So this was an old vintage sheet that I had. I actually have a dress made from this fabric, so I had some extra lying around. It's been one of my favorite vintage sheets forever just because of all the colors. So I decided to try the whole idea of shearing and this whole neckline and sleeve method on this fabric before I tried it on the dress that you will see in a moment. And so I really loved how this turned out. It's a super fun summery spring top, and I actually have a matching mask that goes with it. So it's a very fashionable piece throughout the first part of quarantine. So here's this, and if you want to learn how to do the shearing, I do have a video for a dress that you'll see in a little bit. Okay, so this was probably one of my favorite redesign projects this year just because it was so outside of my comfort zone and such a drastic redesign. So I made this two-piece swimsuit. So these are the bottoms. We'll just like stick them up into here so that you can see how they go together. So these are the bottoms, this is the top, and I made this from a swimsuit that I found at Goodwill that was like a large size, so I had a lot of fabric. It was a not very cute swimsuit, so I filmed a whole video of this process, so if you go watch that, you'll actually see what this swimsuit looked like beforehand, and how I took it apart and then turned it into the swimsuit. So I absolutely love this. Swimsuits are one of my favorite things to make because they're actually way easier than you think, and swimsuits are one of those things that you can never find like the right size or the style or the cut or the print that you like at the store, and so when you can make it yourself, you know that it will fit perfectly. And so this one definitely fit very well. I loved how I made the bottoms. They are super high-waisted, and then we have like these gathered panels on the side which just look really great. And then this top is super fun because it has like a little tiny peplum at the bottom. And then these were the straps on the original swimsuit that I decided to integrate into this design. And then they go into a low back and just super fun and colorful. I only got to wear this a couple times, so I'm definitely looking forward to wearing it in the future. Hopefully on a trip I take to the Mediterranean coast next summer, we shall see. But yeah, this was a super fun redesign project. So if you want to see how I did this or make a swimsuit for yourself, you can go check out that video on my channel. Alright, this is the last redesign that I made this year. This was a dress that I made in the fall and filmed a video for. So it's a super simple fall tint dress made out of a tan sheet. Super simple. You're probably looking at it and thinking, how in the world is that cute or flattering? And obviously this style might not be flattering or everyone's cup of tea, but I have been completely obsessed with this idea of tint dresses and sack dresses this year, and this idea of emphasis in oversized pieces to kind of really play with fashion and style. And so this was the dress that I came up with. You can wear it over things, you can wear jackets over it, you can put belts with it. Absolutely love it. If you go watch the video about how I made this, I show you 3 different ways that I actually styled it. And so it turned out super fun and just very comfortable and flowy and easy. And I actually made another dress that has a very similar style to this early, like in November, and so I did film a video for that as well. It's my freedom dress video, and I will show you that later on in this video as well. Alright, next up we're going to look at all of the pieces that I either drafted from a pattern, used a pattern for. Basically it's the same thing as recycle and redesign, except that I was not using fabric from something that previously existed. I was using fabric from my fabric stash or going out and buying fabric for a specific project I had in mind. So the first thing isn't actually a sewing project, it's just kind of a fun DIY that I made in quarantine. So something that came out, so a fun trend and project that came out this year. I really think it came out because we were all stuck at home and we're like, we need a project to do, and we're like, okay, we have cotton t-shirts and we have bleach, let's make a bleach tie-dye. And so that is a project that I did. This is a dress that I made. This is actually the best thing that came out of my whole science experiment. I filmed a video for it and I called it Science But Make It Fashion or something like that. Alright, so this was one of probably the third dress that I made before I started all of my historical projects in quarantine. I had this gingham literally forever, and I had been seeing dresses that were kind of this style on Pinterest and online, and I kind of wanted to play with it myself. So I did self-draft this entire pattern from my pattern blocks. I didn't film a video for this one, sadly. This is one of the projects I made before I started filming videos, but I really loved how it turned out. I call this my Little House on the Prairie dress, or my not cottagecore dress, but my prairie core dress. So cottagecore was a huge thing in quarantine as well, but there's another side to cottagecore not talked about as much, and that is prairie core, which is much more my cup of tea because I grew up watching Little House on the Prairie and literally playing it in my backyard. Fun fact, I was in a backyard play called Little House on the Prairie, Little House on the Banks of Plum Creek, and I played Mary Ingalls, and one of my good friends played Laura Ingalls, and so we played in the play together. So anyways, this is my Little House on the Prairie dress. Loved how it turned out. It's one of those dresses that has the two different panels, and then it has this whole section at the top with the gathered section and the little ruffly sleeves, which I absolutely love. This is what the back looks like. So I was super excited about how this dress turned out because it really stretched me in the realms of pattern drafting and kind of changing my pattern blocks to create this whole silhouette. Usually I go with very simple dresses and simple bodices. So this was a little bit more of a stretch, but I learned a lot and I really loved how it turned out. So yeah, here is this fun Little House on the Prairie dress. Alright, so this dress was one of my sheared projects this year. It was one of my first attempts at shearing. So before I realized that you can actually use elastic in the bobbin of your machine to create your shearing, I did another method of shearing, which is where you use small round elastic and you sew a zigzag stitch over it while stretching it out across your fabric, and it shears it and kind of stretches it all back together. It's definitely a more tedious and not as foolproof method, as you can see. So I just used some extra blue and white seersucker I had lying around, and it did turn out really fun. I like to call this my Cinderella dress because it just really reminds me of Cinderella, but if Cinderella like lived in Georgia. So it did turn out super fun. I didn't get to wear it a lot, mainly because it is a little tight and the shearing's not quite as great, but it was a fun project just to kind of piddle around with and figure out the whole shearing thing until I realized that there is a much easier way to do it. So here's this dress, and now I will show you my actual sheared dress, which turned out way better. Alright, so here's my official sheared dress. This dress was based off of a pink and white linen gingham dress from the brand Daily Sleeper. It's a UK based brand, and so I based this dress off of that, and I absolutely am so obsessed with it. It is such a fun dress. These sleeves are everything. They're just so frilly and flowy, and the shearing turned out so amazing. Definitely took like 6 hours to sew all the shearing in this bodice, but it's 100% worth it. And I did film a video for this, so if you want to go see how you can actually sew your own sheer dress, it is much easier than you think, especially this whole style. I did self-draft this from pattern blocks, but it's also a style that you could easily self-draft if you don't have pattern blocks or slopers. And so it turned out really well. I just love the neckline, the back, and the front. I love the midi length of dresses. That's totally my new favorite style of dress. And so this dress could also be worn like off the shoulders. This dress is my Sleeping Beauty dress. So the blue seersucker seer dress was my Cinderella. This is very much my Sleeping Beauty dress, and I'm not mad about that. So yeah, this is my sheer dress. Definitely probably one of my favorite summery dresses that I made in quarantine. Alright, so I know that I said that I absolutely loved the pink sheer dress and that it was my favorite, but honestly, this dress might beat it out, and this one might be my favorite. This dress was self-drafted again from pattern blocks. I took into consideration a lot of the styles I had already played with in previous dresses I had made, the whole square neckline and sleeves that fit right on the shoulders with elastic, plus like big poofy sleeves was really a thing that I integrated into most of my designs this year. And then also the whole ruffles and different tiers I just integrated into literally everything. And I'm obsessed with the print of this dress. So this fabric was fabric that I had gotten from my great aunt. It had been literally sitting in my workshop for probably 3 to 4 years, and I always loved the print, but I never knew what to do with it, and it was actually a very stiff fabric, and so I decided to wash it and see if it would soften up, and it turned into this perfectly soft cotton. The print on this dress looks like someone had a blue ink pen and they just sketched all of these flowers over it, so it's definitely a very unique print that you really would never see on anything, but the blue and the white is so classic and so southern and just so ladylike. Absolutely obsessed with it. And one of the things I love about this dress is the back. So I designed it with a scooped back, and then I figured that it probably would not stay up very well, so I ended up adding these 2 long ties so that you can have a bow in the back, and it's literally just too perfect and so fun. And sadly I did not film a video for this dress either. I really wish that I would have, but it's definitely one of my favorite pieces from this year. But honestly, if we're talking about it, literally every single piece from 2020 that I sewed is my favorite, because I was able to integrate something that I loved into it or learn something new and really just stretch myself as a designer and a seamstress. So yeah. Okay, so this was a super fun dress that I made this year. It is based on or inspired by Cecily Bonson, who is a designer who always has these very interesting designs. She definitely plays with this idea of emphasis and things being oversized, but she always has these like interesting curves and waist and ruffles. So I actually made this based off of one, Cecily Bonson, but also with Wendy made a dress based off of Cecily Bonson as well, and I was just really inspired by the dress she made. And so I grabbed this pink seersucker fabric that I had had for a number of years. This fabric seriously is probably from the 50s. A lot of the fabric that I honestly use this year is probably from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, because it's fabric that my great aunt gave me. And so yeah, it's just already a treasure in and of itself, and then getting to turn it into something new was so much fun. And so I love the texture of it, and Cecily Bonson definitely plays with texture. So again, this was self-drafted from all of my pattern blocks, so I just made them all kind of extra wide and large. I created a curve so that we have this kind of raised waistline. There's darts, and then there are 2 layers plus these fun puffy ruffly sleeves. And the really unique, interesting part about this dress is that the closures in the back are just ties. There are no zippers or anything, so because this fabric is so sheer, you actually have to wear like a slip dress underneath it, which isn't that big of a deal. And I've actually worn this a few times in the fall as well, over a turtleneck with like combat boots, and it was such a fun style combination and pairing. And the crazy thing about it is that I've always said pink is my favorite color, but I hardly own anything in pink, and I actually made 3 or 4 things in pink this year, so it's nice to finally have some pink items in my closet and the shade that I really love. So yeah. So this dress definitely took me back to my high school seamstress roots and also my vintage roots, just with the whole silhouette. So I created this dress in a video that I did in collaboration with Mannequin Mall, who actually sent me my 2 lovely mannequins that I use in my workshop for all of my projects. If you're in the market for a mannequin, I cannot recommend them enough, and I actually have a discount code that you can use, so you can check the description below if you would like to check them out and get a mannequin, because it truly changes your life as a seamstress and designer. So I made this dress in collaboration with them to show you all how to self-draft a bodice and a dress to create the perfect fit using the draping method on a mannequin, which is where you take fabric or a muslin and you drape it onto your mannequin and create your actual pattern by tucking it and pinning it in different places and then tracing that out to create your pattern. So if you're interested to see how you can create a pattern by draping, I highly suggest that you go check out that video, and this is the dress that I created based off of that video, and it's seriously the best fitting dress I have ever had, even compared to dresses I've made from slopers or patterns. It fits like a dream and it's so comfortable. So it has a zipper in the back, it has pockets. It's just a super simple plain dress. This is honestly the perfect silhouette and style to create if you're new to sewing. It is the easiest dress to make, but it's also very flattering and very classic. And this print was super fun. It's kind of very vintagely funky, kind of 1960s, and I actually call this my asparagus dress because the green color just reminds me of asparagus. And I also have a sash and a tie to wear with this, but there's a lot of different ways you can style this. And if you watch the video where I made this, you actually see how I styled it over this really fun vintage top. So this was one of the other dresses I made during quarantine, but specifically using mannequins to drape it instead of using my typical method, which is using pattern blocks to redraft. Alright, so this is probably one of the most unique dresses I made this year, not necessarily because of the style, but because of the fabric. So I did film a video all about this. It's called my Freedom Dress video, and so I made this in December as part of my Dresscember campaign. If you aren't familiar, in December I wore, or am wearing, depending on when you're watching this video, a dress every single day for the month of December to raise awareness for human trafficking. The dress is basically your freedom flag, and so I decided I wanted to create a special dress to wear during that month to be kind of an anthem to this movement and to this cause, to bring awareness to this global issue of human trafficking. And so I actually created an original graphic, which is like one of these blocks on Canva, and then I put it onto Spoonflower. Spoonflower is a website that you can create your own fabric on and different projects with prints you create. And I duplicated over my entire fabric, ordered it in a cotton sateen, and then turned it into this fun tint dress that, unlike my other tint dress, actually has elastic and these gathers at the top, which I absolutely love. And so it's been a super fun dress to wear, but also a dress with a message. It's a really cool print, but then when people look closely at it, it ends up saying "not for sale, save the children and human trafficking." And so this dress truly is near and dear to my heart, and to me it's really more of a piece of art to raise my voice about something rather than just being a piece of clothing. So I really love this. So if you want to see how I made this and hear a little bit more about it, you can go check out that video on my channel. Alright, we have saved two of the best for last. This is one of my favorite projects from this year. Oh my gosh, I'm just so obsessed with it, and this is the dress that truly did set in motion my YouTube this year. So if you are familiar with the Kamatoshi dress, it is this super fun strawberry dress. Hers has strawberries that are in glitter, mine is in sequin, and it really kind of blew up on social media at the beginning of quarantine. I think people just wanted to an escape, and for them fashion was an escape, and this dress was something very whimsical and romantic, something that transported them somewhere else besides just being at home. And so the dress became super popular on social media, and I had actually known about it for a year before that and had always kind of toyed with the idea of making it. And so as I was stuck in quarantine, I thought, why not give this dress a shot? And so I made it. I filmed a video for it. I think it was about my third sewing video that I made in quarantine, so definitely go check that out. This dress, the video is super fun, but this dress is super fun as well, and it kind of just blew up. It was literally insane. I posted it, and then it just kept getting all these views, and I literally grew my YouTube channel so much within the span of 3 weeks. Like, it was crazy. So if you were one of those people who followed me because of this dress, thank you. It seriously means the world to me, and you've kind of allowed me to have my dreams of sewing and sharing my love and passion with sewing with you all come true. So that's an incredible part of 2020. So not only did this dress become super popular on my channel and allowed me to really continue to create videos, but I was also interviewed for an NBC News article about the strawberry dress, and so I got to kind of give a quote about the dress, and a picture of me and mine was featured in the article. I was also featured on an NBC Snapchat news story. I was almost featured in the New York Times. So a lot of crazy, amazing things came about because of this dress, and so I'm seriously so in love with it and so excited how it came out. I've never honestly sewn with tulle before, so this really stretched me in all the best ways with sewing with tulle, with sewing with sequins, and also with recreating a designer dress that was very intricate and different than anything I had ever done, of looking at a picture and trying to come up and create the pattern. So again, I did that by using my pattern blocks and my slippers. If you go watch the video for this dress, you'll see all of the details of how I did that and how I kind of draped it and pinned it and cut it. So that's what the front looks like. All this fabulous sequin strawberry fabric. This is what the back looks like. And then we have these ties. So yeah, this is probably one of the best parts of 2020. Alright, so this is one of the other incredible projects that came out of quarantine. I'm completely obsessed with it. It makes all of my fairy tale dreams come true. So this dress was inspired by a dress by Kamatoshi, and Kamatoshi is actually Lori Kamatoshi's sister. It's a different color and a slightly different fabric, but this is actually made out of giant curtains that I found at the thrift store. I cannot remember what this fabric is called. I know in the original video I actually made a mistake and called it the wrong fabric, so go watch the original video and I talk about what this fabric is, and you can also see how I turned these literal like three layer curtains into this dress. So this dress was a huge stretch, probably more than the strawberry dress, just because of the bodice and the bust. It was kind of a bustier style bust with also these gathered panels, so I definitely had to do a lot of maneuvering and adapting. The dress also has this lovely slit in the front and it's all lined, and then there are these giant sleeves that actually gather at the top with ties into giant bows. So I absolutely love how this dress turned out. So again, this is one of those dresses that is completely unpractical. I will never have any place to wear it except in my dreams or to balls that I will never be able to attend. So anyways, I just need to be transported back into history so I can wear this dress. But anyways, it's absolutely fabulous. Definitely one of those pieces that I'm going to treasure forever. This is what the back looks like. This entire bodice has boning and lining. And yeah, I'm just completely obsessed with it and in love with it. It was definitely probably one of my other most popular videos throughout this year, just because of the strawberry dress and the designer, and everyone loves a fairy tale princess dress, so yeah. Alright, so we have talked about my recycle and redesign, we have talked about my original sewing projects from fabric from my stash. Now let's do a little bit of time traveling down into the 1500s, 1700s, 1800s, and beyond. So if you didn't know, and you probably don't necessarily because I literally have not filmed any videos about this yet, all of these projects I didn't actually film videos for, but I am a history, fashion history geek. I absolutely love everything about fashion history. When I was growing up, I literally lived in dress-up clothes from every different decade. I've always wished that time travel was a real thing because I would love to go back to the 1700s and 1800s. And I actually wore most of these to school for an entire week when I was teaching my Fashion 1 students about fashion history. So I dressed up every day in a different decade in these crazy costumes, and I actually filmed a vlog about that entire process. So if you want to go see all those costumes in real life in 2020, go check out that video. So let's dive into what all those projects are. Alright, so first up is this 1840s, 50s-ish dress that I made from the pattern by Angelina Clayton, I think, or Clayton, from her costume pattern line. Basically all of my historical garments that I made in quarantine were based off of her patterns. They're absolutely amazing, so I'll link them down below, and if you go to that video where I wore the historical costumes every day to school, you'll also see them all linked and talked about. And so she's absolutely super talented when it comes to historical costumes and clothing. And so this is a piece that I made. It was one of probably, up until other pieces I had made in quarantine, one of the most detailed historical costumes, just because it has this ruching. It also is piped literally around every edge. I had to make piping for the sleeves, and so it was super fun. It's not completely historically accurate right now because it doesn't have a petticoat underneath it, but this would have been one of the dresses you would have seen during the Civil War or right before the Civil War. Basically either between when they were wearing huge petticoats and when they were wearing hoop skirts. And so I absolutely love how this turned out. I call it my Little Women dress because it reminds me of Little Women, something that they would absolutely wear. So this is the whole front of it. And then this is the back. It just closes with hook and eyes, which I will probably change out one day because they tend to come undone. But this was one of the first historical pieces I made in quarantine, and then I kind of caught the historical sewing bug and ended up going down this rabbit hole of making a ton of pieces, including 2 different like stays and undergarments. So let's dive into the rest of them. Alright, so this was the second historical costume that I made. I'm completely obsessed with this one. This is like your historical fairy tale dress. So again, it is made by this same kind of pattern and designer, Angelina Clayton. And so this is really a 1500s, 1600s dress. It's slightly Renaissance-ish, but it's a little bit like past the Renaissance time period, if I'm saying that correctly. And so it's meant to be worn over a top that I don't actually have on my mannequin right now. But it has this gorgeous square neckline. It laces up the front. I had to learn how to do eyelets, which were super fun. And it has a slit, so this is basically kind of an overdress over this skirt, which actually goes with my Colonial outfit as well, so it's a double-used skirt. And then it has these giant fabulous puff sleeves, which I actually adapted the pattern to be removable, so you can take the sleeves off and just wear the dress without the sleeves, and it's a much more casual dress. This fabric is just super fun. This was also from the stash from my great aunt, and so I just love all the different stripes. And my other favorite thing about this dress is it actually has this gorgeous train in the back. You can't really see it, but the back of the dress is longer, so when you walk it just trails behind you, and it's absolutely fabulous. So I call this dress my Ever After dress. So if you've ever seen the movie Ever After with Drew Barrymore, if you haven't, you're missing out. You need to go watch it right now. But it is an absolutely magical video, and it is the whole kind of story of Cinderella. And so they have a lot of dresses that are this style, and so it's just so magical to wear. And this is one of the first dresses I wore for my historical fashion unit at school. So I did wear this to school, and it was just absolutely the most fun, and I just love it so very much. Okay, so this is one of the other historical costumes I made, and this is one of the ones that I'm 100% not a fan of. I don't really like it that much because after I cut out all the pieces and started sewing it, I realized that the pattern itself was not drafted to be historically accurate because it was based off of the costumes from Outlander, and not all of those are actually very historically accurate because the costume designer changed throughout the show. But anyways, I love this fabric, and there's a cool story behind it because I bought it in Colonial, Williamsburg when I went on my senior trip after I graduated from high school, and so I've been holding on to it forever, so I literally can't get rid of this top because I love the fabric and there's a special meaning to it. And as much as I hated it forever, and it's also not historically accurate because it has a lace-up back, and they did not have that in the 1700s during colonial times, but I did end up wearing this to school as an outfit, and I ended up liking it a lot more because I ended up making an apron for it. So back in the 1700s, they wore a lot of aprons that were this style over their clothes, especially if they were middle class or a worker. And so I ended up adding this apron to the garment, and I ended up liking it a whole lot better because it covered a lot of the things I didn't like. And then one of the other things I made as well was with this cap. So these are the little caps that they would wear in the 1700s with a lot of their garments, and so they kind of just puts the whole look together. So I called this my Felicity dress because Felicity did have a dress that had a very similar print to this. I grew up on American Girl doll, and Felicity is still one of my favorites, and so this just reminds me of something that she would wear and just takes me back to all of the fond memories of childhood. Alright, two of the other things that went along with my historical costumes, one was this chemise, and a chemise is basically an underdress that they would wear in basically most historical times. They were wearing it in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, into the early 1800s, and so it's basically just like a slip dress that they wore under most things. I made mine with a drawstring neckline, and so it's just basically your undergarment for everything. So thankfully I'm able to wear this with most of my pieces, and it's a great kind of undergarment and under like foundation to most pieces. The other thing I made as well was this quilted petticoat, and no, I did not actually quilt this on myself. This is that fabric that you get pre-quilted, so it is not 100% historically accurate because it also does have the polyester quilt batting already attached to it. I just relined it in a cream seersucker similar to the pink seersucker of my dress. But this is your typical petticoat that would be worn in the 1700s. It's quilted, and it has slits on the side, so all it does is ties on the side, and the slits are there so that you can actually use your pockets that would be tied under your clothing. So this is a great foundation piece that I'll be using under all of my historical garments in the future. Okay, one of my other favorite things I made this year, and I've been wanting to make one of these since I was in high school, because I just feel like you cannot be historically accurate and wear historical costumes until you have stays. So this is not a corset, these are stays. The different names for undergarments come through different times in history. Corsets really came out in the 1800s, stays were around in the 1700s, so this is a colonial type of 1700s stays. I use the American Duchess pattern, and I'm just so excited with how these turned out. Definitely want to work on the edging at the bottom, it's a little rough, but this was my first try at making a pair of these. It has boning in all of these channels, so it's definitely a tedious process. And this is the back lace up, but I really love how it turned out, and it's just super fun to wear under your garments. And contrary to popular belief, you actually can breathe very well in these. Corsets are not meant to cut off your circulation. It's meant to give a smooth finish under your clothes and make the clothes the correct silhouette for historical times. So I really love how these turned out. Definitely have other styles I want to make in the future, but this was my first attempt at it, so I'm pretty proud of it, and it was definitely a highlight of getting back into sewing during quarantine. Alright, so not only did I make a 1700s pair of stays, I also made an 1830s pair as well. And the 1830s, it's not really a corset, it's not really stays, it only has a couple layers of actual boning, and then the rest is just kind of cording. So this was super fun to make. I used a historical pattern that I got off of Etsy. This is definitely a much more intricate style of stays because you have to sew in all of these little channels, which is super interesting, and then the boning is placed in different places as well. And this specific style actually had cording, so you actually have to go in and you have to insert thread, which is the cording, into all of your layers. So there was a lot of handiwork and skill that goes into this. And then typically this would have a busk, which is a wooden curved piece of wood that goes into the front. So this is a much more breathable type of historical undergarment. This is how the back laces up. Again, there's a ton of cording on this as well, so I'm definitely very proud of all of the work that I put into this because it was a time-consuming process. And I made it self-lacing, which means instead of having to have someone lace you up, you measure all of the pieces of the strings to tie it, and then you attach it to just one piece of fabric on the side so that it ties into the front. So it basically looks like this. So they're all intertwined, and then you just pull it on yourself and tie it. So it's really easy to get dressed by yourself because we don't have people to help us get dressed like back in the olden days. So this was a fun project, and definitely have to work on the other 1830s undergarments to go along with it, but I did make an 1830s dress, which I will show you next. Okay, this might be one of my favorite historical projects from this year. So this is a dress based on styles from the 1830s. The 1830s style really only stuck around for about 10 years. It wasn't super popular. And the thing about the 1830s was this drop shoulder style and these very interesting sleeves. They're called like leg of lamb sleeves because they literally look like a leg of lamb or a leg of mutton. And so I actually had to do a lot of research on how to draft these historically because I was using a dress the dress pattern from my 1840s dress, and then I was adapting the sleeves, so I actually based these off of a historical pattern from like an old historical book, and then I got this lovely belt buckle off of Etsy, and I absolutely love how this turned out. It's just so unique and so just classic and pretty, and it actually looks very much like an 1830s dress that I believe is at the Victorian Albert Museum. If I find a picture, I'll pop it up right here. So it makes me super happy because it's just everything great about fashion history. And then I put buttons in the back, and the other interesting thing about this style is you cut it on the cross grain or off the bias, so you actually have these diagonal stripes, and that's a huge part of it. And then this entire skirt is pleated, so I really love how this turned out. We have all of our piping, and this was another dress that I wore to school, and it was super fun to get dressed up for this day because I just absolutely love this dress. And I did wear my 1830s like stays underneath it, so that was super fun to feel extra historical. Alright, last but not least is my 1890s suit kind of outfit that I made. This again is made from a pattern by Angelina Clayton, and I absolutely love it. I call this my Anne of Green Gables dress, but Anne of Green Gables, the continuing story, like if you're watching the movies, it's like the second set of movies and like the fourth book when she's a teacher and like her and Gilbert are together. But anyways, absolutely obsessed with this. I love this fabric so much. All of the colors are just so fun and autumnal and just full of oranges and reds and peaches and purple and yellow. And this jacket was super fun. I'm not a huge fan of making jackets, and this is definitely not my favorite cut, but it was a fun challenge, and I added these kind of closures in the front, which gives it a very unique vibe. Typically this would be worn over a button up, and then I have a little kind of tie that would be worn as well. And then this is what the back looks like. It's this fun little ruffle, and the jacket is also lined with the same fabric as the skirt, so I absolutely love that. And then it also has a fun little train in the back as well. Alright, so that is a wrap on everything I made in 2020. It honestly was way more than I realized until I started filming this video, and even amidst the craziness of 2020, getting to get back into sewing was honestly one of the best things. And in many ways, as odd as it sounds and seems, 2020 really was kind of like honestly like the best year of my life, even amidst the craziness. Like there's so many things I would have traded and wish I didn't have, or that would have been able to happen, but I was able to like find new passions and different things, reevaluate my life, I feel like, in different ways, and just grow as a person. And one of that was growing in creativity and rediscovering my love for fashion and sewing, and also getting to create this community online, getting to put out videos to share my love and passion for fashion and sewing with all of you, to inspire you, to be inspired by you, to challenge you and to encourage you to take risks in sewing, whether it's trying something new or trying sewing for the first time. It's been so fun sharing my story and my journey, and I just cannot thank you enough for being supportive, for hitting the subscribe button, for following along, liking and commenting my videos, whether you've been here since the beginning or you've been here recently. Just thank you so very much. I am so excited to see what the future holds in store for this channel. I definitely have so many ideas and not enough time to do them all, but I'm excited for the ones that I do get to create and complete. So I look forward to sharing those with you in the future, so make sure that you're subscribed to stay up to date on all of those. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I will see you in the next one.